The piece we're sharing with you tonight is called Living Language. Kumusta ka? The first line on the first page in any edition of Introduction to Tagalog. Kumusta ka? How are you? Kumusta ka? A greeting. Kumusta ka? A question. A question I can ask, but which, if asked, I would not know how to answer. I'm fine, good, tired, busy, which in English say very little, but even this little, I cannot find the words to say. This tongue cannot form the sound, has not the habit, the choreography to dance over all the things I've recently seen, felt, touched and done, with which I could trace from me to you the shape of how I am. So I'll just smile, tilt my head and ask, Kumusta ka? And pretend to understand how you are and who I am.
Home. Niladil. We used to carry our homes in our names, sometimes a burden, too heavy and too foreign to bear. Sometimes a cushion to break my fall, feel like I belong, somewhere, anywhere, if only for a moment, in a word. We used to carry our homes in our names. Niladil, my ancestral home. Niladil, in Malayalam, means drenched in moonlight. Niladil, my faraway home, my mother's home, my grandmother, my great-grandmother. But I am a post-colonial child, a stranger in a strange world. Niladil, I carry her name no more.
Ka'ina, eat now, come eat. An invitation spoken much more like a command, which I will forever imagine in my Lola's voice. That turn of phrase cradled in the timbre of her utterance, conjuring the fragrant aromas through which I inhale the provinces of my bloodline. I cannot claim to know my mother's tongue. My mother tongue arises from a history of imposition, violence, colonization of the soil that welcomed my grandparents' arrival. But my mother's tongue, that I do not know through its speaking, but instead by the peaks and valleys of its taste map. Maasim, matamis, masarap. Flavors within flavors within flavors. Intricacies I could not hope to translate, from which a lifetime of ingestion bestows a deep sensory knowing. Ka'ina, an instruction to digest, to devour, to partake in this, the most sacred of domestic rituals. Ka'ina, eat now, come eat.
Dunia tumar khelar mat. The world is your playground, my auntie used to sing to me, in Bengali. The language of loss in literature, the language that irked the freedom movement. The language as widespread as the grief of partition when the civilized masters left our barbaric shores with their stained white sails up high. After their cold, calculated division of a nation into fragmented, corrosive relations, fractured hearts and broken limbs that once held each other. I get a sense of the old when I hear Bengali. I'm immediately Indian, Pakistani, Afghani, Bangladeshi. But why stop there? Dunia hamar khelar mat.
Hindi Olam, I don't know. My absence of that most precious possession, knowing. If only I had the concreteness of consciousness, the enduring awareness, a salve to salvage this insecure state of being, this unrelenting state of not knowing. To not know the singular words which, when strung together, cause the bodies around the dinner table to bubble, boil, burst in fits of laughter. To not know, and yet to feel the rhythm of my own diaphragm expand, contract, expand, contract, caught up in the mirth, the snatches of meaning which grasp at the edge of my ignorance. Hindi ko alam, I don't know. To not know the streets paved by my parents' memories, the melodies sung in the keys of their nostalgia. To not know, and yet to tread those same streets with the footfalls of one who belongs on my very first visit, and recognise whispers of remembrance in a tune I've never heard. Hindi ko alam. To not know language is not just loss of language. The very processes of thought that sear avenues and boulevards in the synapses of their minds, the neural pathways that engrave, beyond articulation, ways of thinking, knowing and being. Hindi ko alam. To not know language, this intergenerational disruption from which I sense my fractured position. To not know, and yet to be a native in a world of multiplicities, an original inhabitant in this era of global shifts, at home in this birthplace of not knowing.
दौड़ दौड़ दौड़िया जहाँ लगे मन की दौड़ दौड़ थके मन स्थिर भया तो वास्तु थोर की दौड़. Kabir, the Sufi poet, sang in the language of Mawa. You ran and you ran as fast as you can. When you grew tired and weary and finally stood still, it was then that you found what you were looking for. I skip and run from one language to another. I'm a post-colonial child. Roots that once grew deep now grow wide. I flit from language to language with history trailing behind. Living within language.
Living without language. Kumusta ka?
Niladil.
Kaina.
Dunia khelar mat.
Hindi ko alam.
Dord, dord, doria.
Thank you.